Hey guys, late start to the live feed, but I am finally going. I've got the new MST CFX. This is the 1/10 scale version. They're releasing two new kits. One's a 1/10 and one's a 1/8 scale. That's at least what they call it. I won't say that they're 1/10 or 1/8 because scale is pretty up in the air, but that's what they're labeling them anyway. So this is the one that they're labeling a 1/10 scale, which comes out to be like a 10-inch wheelbase as far as what they're calling it. So anyway, I've got Facebook and YouTube going. I am actually finally able to see the YouTube live chat. So that is quite nice. So thanks for a couple of the guys that are checking in on YouTube. I've got a couple of comments rolling there, and now I can see the Facebook as well. So finally we've got the live chat going on both where I can see those. So thanks for guys checking in there and here, both of you guys. Hopefully the live view, let's see, live view on Facebook is, I don't know, it looks like it's portrait now. I don't know what's going on. It's always something different with what's going on there. So I'm just going to dig into this kit. This is the first MST kit that I will have owned. Got this shipped in just now, so we'll see what we got here. Their manual, and then we'll just start getting into it. I don't know if I need to, I'm not going to do it unboxing and show you everything what's going on, but as we go through, I'll talk about the parts individually. So I'm going to kind of just pull everything out, set it all aside, and crack open the manual, and we'll see what this thing looks like. So, I have two live chats, but people still want to text me the questions. Let's go. Let's see. All right, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with how the YouTube thing is going here. I will say, I like Facebook Live and all that, but the YouTube view and everything is so much better, and I do have the live chat on there now. So if you want to see things way better than you can on Facebook, go over to the YouTube side. It's just a whole lot better to view. So we'll say that. Hopefully the stream strength is going to be fine on both. Yeah. Sorry for all of the background noise. We have all of the CNCs cranking away. All right. Yes, my new hoodie. Thanks to the guys over at the Hoonigan Garage, I was able to get myself a nice new hoodie. So, now if you guys aren't, MST is not by any means a new company. They've been around for a long time, and they mainly have made drift cars in the past, I believe. My total familiarity, can't say that word, with MST is somewhat limited, but I have been a fan of some of their drift cars. I always wanted one of the old FXXDs back in the day, but that's about as far as my reach with MST has gone in the past. So, cracking into the manual here. The manual's, it looks pretty good. Just I'm not going to show you guys every step of the manual or anything like that, but just to give you guys a look at how this whole thing kind of is played on there. Pretty clear. We'll see how it builds. Let's see. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Won't go through all the names, but I see a lot of you guys as familiar faces from Facebook jumping over to YouTube, and as they will see, it is much, much clearer. I did get a late start, so I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. Where is my knife? Oh, that's going to drive me nuts. Did I already pull it out? What a bummer. What did I do with my knife? Oh, sorry. Fell out of my pocket. This is not the 1/8 one. I do have the 1/8 one en route, so I will probably do the live build on the 1/8 one again very soon. But that'll at least give me a basic basis to compare them on. This one was available first, so this one got on its way first. Now, right off the bat, for those of you guys who haven't seen any of the details about this car, again, this is a smaller car than an SCX10. It's like a 10-inch wheelbase versus a 12.3, roughly. I can't remember exactly what it is. I could go through and find it, but we'll get to that later. This thing has a steel ladder or frame rail chassis. It's got a pretty cool transmission and transfer case setup. It's actually a planetary setup. For those of you who haven't seen a planetary, it's a different style. It's not like a 3-gear stack. It uses what's called sun gears and planetary gears. And once I get this a little bit more put together, that will all make sense. But right off the bat, this is the transmission gear bag. And they're all what appear to be sintered metal gears. Now, we all know that sintered metal gears are not as strong as machined gears. However, they're much stronger than plastic gears, so it's a bonus. And this size car, as much as I like to overpower things and things like that, I don't know that this car is really begging for a ton of power. The price point on this thing is less than 200 bucks, I think. I don't remember. It was a few weeks ago when this thing was ordered, so I don't remember what was paid for it. So let's get into putting some of this stuff together. I guess right off the bat it says to open bags 1, 2, and 3. So I had already opened 1 and 2. This is 3. I'll try and keep up with comments as best I can. This is not the portal axle one. The portal axle version is the 1/8 scale one that, again, I will be building here within the next week or so. I could be way off on my price point. Someone needs to double check me on that. Why are you... Mike, stop yelling my name. All right, so... not made any progress up to this point other than just opening bags. So there's these two. It's telling me that there's a gear pin that I don't see anywhere. Oh, here it is. This is a really oddly organized bag of bearings and parts and all that. I mean, it's not bad. It's all right there, but it's odd. It's not my favorite thing. It's not the worst thing. Again, late start is causing me to slightly rush. Okay, it is $220. Thanks, Eric, for double checking the price on that. $220 for this kit. Let's see. This, according to the manual, is called the deceleration gear assembly. I do not know why they would call it that. What in the world? Tolerance on the parts is pretty good. I like how they go together. It's I mean, things fit tight. They fit well. Nothing is sloppy at this point. So far, granted, I put one part together. Let's see. They're all, looks like it comes with all metal shielded bearings rather than rubber shielded. If anybody really cares all that much about that. At this point, let's see. again, I apologize for not watching the comments and everything. I'll get back to them soon, but for now, I just want to get through some of this. At this time, I'm going to admittedly not use grease on this car. Honestly, if I really like this car and want to, all of that, I'll be back into it for upgrades and yada yada yada, all that. So at this point, I just want to get it together, see how it goes together. Because if I am going to tear back into it several times, I don't want it to be all full of grease. So that's my reasoning. I like how the metal centered outer sun gear assembly slides into this plastic housing. So this is the gear assembly. You can see kind of a pinion gear on the inside, which is going to be, they have the spur gear and everything driven off of it. Then we'll have 4 planetary gears that go on the outside. But it's pretty interesting. And then this is kind of like the first transmission housing part. And this whole assembly slides in there, presses in. The fit of the plastics are really nice. So put that on. And then this is that sun gear or planetary gear assembly. This has the 4 smaller gears, and these all will mesh with that center pinion gear. So that center pinion gear drives all 4 of these gears, which run around the outside of that. So, oh, and don't forget the bearing. 4 by 10 by 4. That's a different one. Used to seeing 5 by 10 by 4. So that's going to drop on there. And it's got a real nice feel. You can tell that there's a lot of gear engagement. The reduction feels good. I quite like that. So that gear fit on there, and then there's a metal retainer part that goes over, and then it's going to thread into that plastic housing to keep this thing all retained. After, looks like we need a flanged bearing. That I do not see. Oh no, it uses a bearing holder. Looks like it's a plastic bearing holder. That's interesting. We gotta find that though. There it is. It's in with the spur gear. Weird little plastic cup. It's not bad, but that's my least favorite part so far. So then we use a 5 by 10 by 4. Nope, that's a 5 by 11. Oh, 5 by 10 goes on the top. And what is that lower one? 5 by 8. Ugh, I hate 5 by 8 bearings. They're such a weak bearing. I hate seeing that in a transmission. Let's see, presses in there pretty well. I don't know what the overall gear ratio of this car is right now. I just saw that comment pop up. I'd have to go back in the end and set it all up all together. Um, yes, the 1/8 scale version of this is what will be more closely relatable to an SCX10. This guy. I am really looking forward to the 1/8 scale version of this car. I do prefer that 12.5-inch wheelbase or whatever it's going to be close to. But what I'm really excited about is those planetary axles that car has. Planetary axles are just cool, and that's why I like them. But I'm just looking forward to that new change that they're coming up with. Now, I will say that this part of the instructions is not very clear. You have to look really close at how some of this front gear or this intermediate gear assembly goes together. That could be better. Big E-clips. I will say though that so far all of these parts have a really nice feel. Like quality-wise, this is the feel of these things is quite nice. Let's see. Okay. That, and another 5x10. One small gripe that I will have is that such a small difference in bearing size between a 5x10 and a 5x11, but the amount of load difference that a 5x11 has versus a 5x10 is so large that I don't understand why people use 5x10s. Maybe the 1/8 scale will be better in that respect. I'm also pretty interested to see how long this car takes to assemble altogether, even though I'm going to be talking out loud the whole time. Okay, M3 by 16. Wish I had my calipers in here to check some things, but that's bizarre. Okay, we'll see. M2. Pretty sure. Okay. So this is the majority of the front. Man, it is windy out here today. Okay, now we need to go to the slipper discs. We have some stamped steel slipper discs. Actually have a little bit of rust in the bag, but not bad. Yes, well, that noise in the background is the curries being made. You can listen to it and just know what's going on. All right. spur gear on this car is nice and tiny. Being that it's got that planetary front, you know, this is a forward motor setup. Teeny tiny slipper disc. You know, here is the SCX-10-2 transmission in comparison. You can see the size difference of the spur gear. Granted, the SCX-10-2 comes with a 32 pitch, and this is a 48 pitch. The size, this is a 62 tooth, 48 pitch gear. Okay, it does not, the slipper discs that it comes with are not adhesive backed. At least nothing that I see you can peel off. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I? I don't see anything. One side is definitely the rougher, or you know, more grippy side, so you definitely would want that side out. And it does take a 5x8 bearing in the, or is it a bearing? Is it a, oh, they call it a bearing, it's a bushing, you know, same thing. They're, as far as, yes, I forget that the video's backwards, so my my new hoodie has an interesting saying on it. Go watch the YouTube one. The view is so much wider. You can see so much more. You can see the new orange SCX-10-2 knuckles sitting over here. Let's see. So you put that slipper assembly on, and then it says there's a 5x10 bearing that goes on the outside of that. Oh, that's kind of cool. So this then that's an the spur gear assembly on this car is actually double supported. Rather than having the top shaft just kind of hang out there, this will be a fully double supported gear. That's kind of nice. It also has a full breakdown of all of the gear ratios for this car in here, depending on what pinion you use. And I don't know, it's all based on the one spur gear though, 62 tooth spur gear. There is no ability to go any bigger with the spur gear or really any smaller based on those slipper pads. So you're pretty much stuck with that gear as far as your spur gear, and then you have to just base everything on the pinion gear adjustment. This says the smallest pinion gear you can go with is a 17 tooth. And then it goes all the way up to 25 tooth. If you use a 17 tooth spur gear with this car, you'll have a final drive ratio of 46.7 to 1. Pretty good. I usually like to run between 40 to 1 and 50 to 1. So, you know, between a 17 and a 19 tooth pinion gear is what I would suggest. Let's see. Okay, so we have that. Now we need two M3x10s. I will say, yeah, William, the spur gear at this point looks pretty buried in this car. So I would agree that if you're to tear up a spur gear in this car, it very well could be a nightmare to change. My knife is, this is a Kershaw. So nothing special, it's like a $40 knife. Alright, so we have these two M3x10s secure the new front motor plate onto the transmission. The motor will bolt to this, so at a minimum, we're going to have to pull those two out to change that. Now I need to find these. There they are. We have two extremely long M3x40 millimeter. M3x40 socket head cap screws. So these are going to come in from the back side of the transmission all the way up to the front. And then they actually thread into the bottom side of that front motor plate, pulling it all together. But in general, this is a really nice, I mean, it's a compact transmission. I hope that the popularity of this truck goes well, just because, you know, the availability of having parts like this transmission could be beneficial to, you know, a lot of us that like to use other parts in other applications. So now I need my, to find the spring to the slipper. I know I already got it out. Did I knock it off the table? I hope not. Oh, it's right in front of me. Let's see. 4 by 10 by 1 slipper spacers. Okay. So that's something to notice, is that there's 2 washers that you have to put on when you're installing the slipper assembly. One of them, the one that goes to the bearing side, has a taper so that it doesn't rub on the outside of the bearing race. Need to be careful as to what way you put those on. Pretty good strength on this slipper spring, I'll say. A little better than I've seen in the past. I'm not going to tighten it all the way down like I normally would on some other cars, because I have no idea how the durability of the parts will be, and I don't want to get in there. All right. Just for demonstration, I want to install a motor in here while I'm going. I don't know what I'm going to run in the end, but I'll be right back. Sorry for the delay. Let's see. Yes. Sorry for the delay. And shit. I just don't think I have brushed motors around, which is really what I was, and I don't, most of my motors have 5mm shafts, which is not going to work with the pinion. So for now, I'm going to install one of these Holmes motors. This is one of his Polar Pros. I am simply going to install this for display only. Let's see. Apologize for running out. Where did I'm not sure their methodology behind how they separated the parts in these bags. They're not really like following steps, like step by step, all matching up. So I guess we'll see if that is a common trend throughout this kit. The screw quality is pretty nice, though. You can tell it's a quality kit, or a quality set of hardware. You know, it's harder hardware than typical black hardware you see in kits. Let's see. Pretty decent. Again, I don't think that I would use a Holmes Polar Pro in this car. I would probably want to go with a Holmes brushed motor. Probably, if I was guessing with this car, I'd want to use like I always like the 5-slot Crawlmaster brushed motors. And if I was trying to decide, I would have a real, I don't know yet, with the 46-to-1, I'd probably want to use a 13-turn, which is like a 27-turn motor. If I was going down to a 19-tooth pinion, which is 41.8-to-1, I'd probably want to go with a 16-turn motor, which is like a 35-turn typical brush motor. Okay, and now we have 3 screws to hold. Man, if you tear up a spur gear on this car on the trail, you are not going to be happy. I don't know. I wonder if this is, yes, black oxide hardware is tough, but not all black hardware you get in RC car kits is the same grade of steel. You know, some, as much as I bag on the car, the twin hammers, while it can be a fun car and can be fun to drive and all this and all that, it had the worst hardware quality of any car I've ever built. Softest heads on any screw. It's just, ugh. So, you know, Axial's black hardware is pretty decent usually, not the best, but this is really good hardware. I prefer black oxide hardware over stainless hardware just about any day. I mean, just strength-wise. Yeah, it can rust, but in general, I would much rather have black oxide hardware. So, now we need 4 M3x10s, which would be these guys. One thing I would like if they did on these manuals was add the little screw diagram on every page like Axial has and a lot of other brands have. That's a handy thing to have. While they have the size, you know, deals where you can match it up on the first pages, you don't have it on every page, and it's a pain to go back and forth. Let's see. Yes, my backwards print Vanquish hat. This one is getting a little old. It needs replacing. I mentioned that I would like to see the parts thing on every page, and while it wasn't on the first couple of pages, randomly on the next page they have it at the top. So why didn't they just have it on every page? They obviously knew it was a good idea. All right, next we're going to assemble the transfer case. Once we get that together, we can compare it next to the other one that I have here. 5 by 10 by 4. 5 by 10 by 4 bearings everywhere in this thing. Not my favorite. Would much rather have liked to have seen 5 by 11s. It's a small complaint, and on a card this size, it is probably not an issue. But still, use 5 by 11s. I know 5 by 10s are super common throughout RC, so don't get all butthurt in the comments. But so are 5 by 11s. Yes, I do know page space is complicated and all of that. I have dealt with that before for a lot of years, but if you know you can do it once, you should do it right. Let's see. I've made my decision. I really hate how they had that bag laid out. Yes, it's a very small gripe still. There's that. That's bizarre. What in the world? This is a very odd setup that they have here. Let's see. That goes in the top position. Right. Move on to the next one. Let's see. The fit of the gears over the shaft has been super nice. I mean, you can tell just tolerances are nice. This is not MST's first crawler either, scaler, crawler, whatever you want to call them. They made the CMX prior to this cart. Now, when that CMX came out, I was not overly excited just based on a lot of the decisions they made with materials in certain positions of that car. It does look like they've learned. We'll see when we get to the axles, make sure everything there is metal. I haven't looked at everything in this car yet. I've been busy and just wanted to get it built. But at least I got it ordered in here. I know I'm ignoring most of it, but it's late already, and we all know how long live builds can go. It's 8 o'clock here. And I just don't want this to go go until 1 a.m. I'm hoping that this isn't going to take that long. And I still have not decided to just grab my power driver set. I never prepare properly for live builds. I'm always rushed and just want to get things going. I went and got dinner before this, but I did not get Red Bull or Smart Water, which I always get Smart Water. There's that. That concludes the two major parts of the transmission. So they'll sit in about that orientation with a small transfer shaft between them, or coupler, however you want to call it. It's a pretty good sized transfer case. And the transmission is fairly compact, but not crazy. It's going to be hard to compare these since they're not attached yet, but overall size of this thing, this is a losing battle, I can tell, but that's the SCX-10-2 kit transmission. Your comparative, the motor is going to sit higher in this, but it is going to sit forward. Let's see. Right, so yeah, I'll keep this, even though I'm undressing, we'll keep the stream mainly family friendly, other than my pirate mouth. Okay, bag 4. More of the screw hardware bag style I don't like, but oh well. We're also into the frame rails. This is an interesting one. This says step 1. And it's just this whole page. It just looks like an exploded car diagram. It just says that's step 1. It's just kind of funny. Let's just start with one side of this frame and try and get it all put together. What a seriously overcomplicated step. That's almost comically set up. Not a fan. Let's see, A's and B's on shock tower. So this is a B. This goes to the back. Shock towers are kind of keyed into the frame rails. It's not bad. It's a nice addition. And that hooks up with the right. Let's see. It goes to there. M3x8s. Due to the way that they organized their manual and all of that, when building this car, I would highly suggest having your calipers handy to measure things quickly. If you're not familiar enough to just distinguish an 8mm screw from a 10mm or something like that. I'm not taking off clothing for likes. It's not going to happen. Let's see. Where's the 6s? There's 6s. These are not the portal axles. That will be the 1/8 scale one. I'll be assembling that one later in the week probably, otherwise next week. Live streaming's been on YouTube for quite a while in several different manners, either Hangouts or this. I'm actually using an encoder that allows me to do the live streaming from there. If I wasn't trying to do a YouTube live stream and a Facebook live stream, I could actually more easily do multi-camera on one stream to allow me to do some switching. And I'll be playing with that here in the future. This has got some seriously beefy cross members. Cross member A and D. Where is that noted? They look identical, almost. That's D. Okay. Yes, stripping on the internet. That is what I have. That's what I've got down to. Piss. Some parts of this design I do quite like. Some parts seem like they could use a little bit of assembly polishing, but so far quite nice. Anybody who said all right, skid plate. Now this skid plate, this skid plate looks like it was built by a company who doesn't build crawlers typically. While it doesn't have any major hang points, that's a big bonus. It's got a solid quarter inch of material between the bottom of the transmission and the bottom of the skid plate. Some things that I like about the assembly of this car so far is a lot of these parts, so say the hole on the chassis for it is like a 5mm ID, and then the plastic part that keys into the chassis has that 5mm OD on it with a 3mm ID on it, so that you actually thread into the plastic, but everything kind of keys in and holds itself pretty well. Just, it's nice. Shit. Sorry. Put the skid plate in backwards. Like a newbie. Can you wet your beard and shake it real slow? Jesus Christ. What is wrong with you people? What wheels are meant to be used with? Drew, I don't know what you mean on that beadlock question. Sorry if I can't get back to you, whatever your question is. You can message me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and I can get you a response to whatever question you have about those wheels. This one is not going to be wider than an SCX-10. This one's going to be narrower than an SCX-10. This is a smaller car in general. This is going to be like a 10-inch wheelbase car. I remember my first build. All right. Now that I've fixed my screw up there, all right, got a rear electronics tray, my guess is. Well, so there's this little rear electronics tray that I'm about to install, and it, for some reason, uses metal nuts that slide down into it rather than threading into the plastic like every other part on this truck so far, it seems. I'm not really sure why that is yet. Hopefully it makes more sense here in a little bit, because otherwise that seems completely ridiculous. I'm afraid to even think about going back and reading through the comments on this video with whatever you crazy people are typing. And I'm not going to go back and read them either, just so you know. Okay. These. So, Andy, good point on the on why that one might be that. There is only one point of contact on that one. The other ones all have at least 2 points. There goes that lock nut. But for an electronics tray, and it does key into the slot of the chassis, you know, the C channel of the chassis. I could take or leave their excuse on that one. So this thing does have shock positions that you can adjust the rear shocks for longer wheelbases and all that. I set it at the close one for now. You know, I don't know how far I'll take this truck right off the bat. I just kind of wanted to build it to see what it's like first. Knowing that I can adjust that down the road is nice. We'll see how their links are built. Any of these people who build the adjustable wheelbase cars like the Vitara, I did not care how they said theirs was adjustable wheelbase. You still had to change the links completely for every one, which I'm sure this will be, but they use like long set screws in between, and I did not care for that at all. Okay, 3x10. That is not a 10. Certainly is not. Damper B. Let's see. Yes, I forgot the shock hoop initially. Sorry. So, what do I got there? 3x8s. So far, this thing is going together pretty quickly. Fairly happy with that. What time is it? 8:15 so far. I'm threading everything in backwards. I do not keep dropping my nuts. I dropped some screws a few times. So far, there's only 2 nuts in this build. Okay. It's a 10, so 8, 6, 8. It's the first screw that went in and felt like there just wasn't anything in there holding it. We're getting closer. My wrist is getting tired. All right, that was one step. One step. Well, wasn't particularly difficult. That should have been broken up. So, now an interesting thing, this is the coupler that attaches that front-mounted gearbox to the transfer case. It is plastic, so it's the one plastic component of this drivetrain, which is just odd so far. Probably is going to hold up okay. Don't love that they did that. And it is attached with just some pins. You put these dowel pins, M2 by, what are these? 11.8. You put that dowel pin into that output of that transmission. Slide this thing on. Put that pin into the top shaft of the transfer case. Slide it all into place. Come on. Slide it all into place, and then fidget the transfer case into place. That's okay. Okay, not great. It's just an odd design choice. But I just have to say again how good the hardware in this build is, though. Like, the hardware quality is fantastic. I oftentimes use a power driver. Most of the time I forget, I have 3 power drivers, and I usually have them set up with one as a 2, one as a 2.5, and one as a 1.5. But for some reason, for multiple months now, I've just never got them back out. No, I can't turn off the humming. If you guys want curry axles, the humming has to continue. All right, there's our chassis and drivetrain setup. Spins pretty well. Overall, so far, I am impressed. Oh, and now I'm unimpressed immediately. This may be the worst looking link set I've ever seen, including every plastic link set ever. Oh, I don't even want to build these. Drive shafts look good. Oh, God, I wish I had a fast eddy bearing kit here, because the axles are full of bronze bushings. And I'm about to show you why I am so unimpressed. Okay, this is our link page. And if you can see, what we have here is the links. For example, this is the steering link assembly, as they call it. It is 2 basically extremely long rod ends with a set screw holding them together in the middle. That is awful. Awful, awful. But I know where I can get links. If that is the worst part of this kit, it will be a great kit. But that's terrible. Okay. I really do not want to build these links. They're so bad. These are comically bad. This is the worst. What? Okay, this is... these aren't called rod ends, they're called adjusters. This is adjuster 2. The steering link, servo link assembly is made out of 2 pieces of adjuster 2 and 1 M3x20 set screw. So we're going to take this M3x20 set screw and put it into this adjuster. So there's half of it. And then we're going to hand thread on the other side because that's all you can do. Oh, and bonus, you're supposed to leave a 4mm gap between them. Ugh. Now, here's the other crappy part about this is just shove it in. That's what I should have done. That's about what I think of how good that these are, or how bad that these are. And in case you were wondering, these high quality links do as well use high quality plastic balls. So using plastic balls and rod ends is one of my least favorite things. So what I was about to say is the bad part about this is, say for instance, I want to put a link kit together for this. This thing is made to fit 3 different wheelbases. So that means I have to build 3 different kits to work, to make you so you can buy a kit conveniently buying one thing. Meh. Let's see, did I build this right? It needs to go that way. Again, let me express my extreme distaste for their link technology. This is definitely not max speed technology, which is what MST stands for, if nobody got what I meant. It's oh, by all means, I totally agree. Links are the weak point on a lot of different kits. So, and like I said, if the links are the worst thing about this kit, I will be extremely happy about that. Because so far, it's a nice kit. It really is. I just can't believe how bad these links are. How did this make it through? Whatever. I'll get over it. I'll rag on him for it, but I'll get over it. Okay, so like I had said before, I had put the shock hoops in the location for the short wheelbase. Wow. What is 242 millimeters? Dang, that's less than 10 inches. 242 divided by 25.4. That's a 9.5 inch wheelbase. Dang. 252 millimeter wheelbase is right at 10 inches almost. 267 is the long wheelbase setting. That is 10.5. So I don't know how much I would have to change. Okay. Okay, I'm going to build the links for the 10.5 inch wheelbase setup, the longest setup, just because 10.5 is as short as I'm willing to build a wheelbase. All right, and to do that, I need 2 of the longest ones of these. Yep. 2 of those. Okay. Let's see. Hold on just a second. It does give you a nice little chart here to tell you what wheelbase to build for if you want to use the Ford Bronco, Toyota LC40, Mercedes-Benz Unimog, or the Toyota FJ. Those would all be referring to the Tamiya bodies, but cool little thing right there that they just threw in there, the manual for you. As I said, I'm going to build it to 267. Toyota LC40. Actually, no. I'm going to build it to the 242 that I built the linkless for. It's my Ford Bronco body. If I do build this thing completely, that Ford Bronco body, kind of cool. Why not? So that needs 242. That's the shortest one. 36.5 and 48.4. So it's not any of those, and it's just these. Let's see. All right, so at this point, we've got to thread these set screws into the plastic center link section and then thread on the plastic rod ends after that. Again, not a fan of the link setup, but oh well. So, play 5. Will those links work with your... Nice. I really wish I could just jam these things on here and be done. See. So while I'm building links, Forrest, you just asked how my wife's like in California. Funny story. We went back for Christmas, obviously. Had a great time. And a couple of days before we were supposed to leave, I was obviously going to go check just like when our flight left to fly back. And for some of you that know, my wife has, which means we have cats. We have 2 cats that were still back in Missouri that had not made the trip out. So on this flight back, that meant we were bringing the cats back. We're flying with them. And not just flying with them, but carrying them on. So they were going to sit underneath of the seats in front of us. So back to the story. I went to go check in our flight, and something, I was just staring at it, and I could just tell it wasn't right. And I had accidentally bought our plane tickets backwards, meaning that I bought them. We were supposed to come back here to California, and I bought them from Sacramento to Kansas City rather than from Kansas City to Sacramento. So we basically did not have proper plane tickets to return. So I needed to get back to work. So I had to spend way too much money to get myself a new return ticket in time, which was very expensive. And instead, we figured Nicole could wait a few more days to return because her ticket would then still cost extra money but would be cheaper. But since there's still 2 cats, it meant that I had to carry one on by myself. That was not fun. So I am back. The cat did make it safely while I was stressed about it, not super happy the whole time. The cat wasn't super happy either. However, it was sedated. But Nicole will be back in town in a couple of days with the other cat, which is the one that's actually an asshole. So it's so yeah, it cost me a bunch of money for my screw up, but that is the last step of our move. What is today? The 3rd? I've been out here in California almost exactly a year. I think it'll be like exactly a year tomorrow or the next day. So it took us almost exactly a year to complete the move. Yes, my favorite part of the build, or my least favorite part, building links. I think I'm seriously only halfway done. Oh no, these are, I don't know what this is. Yes, I'm halfway done with links. I really wish I had my power driver at this point, especially. So yeah, that has been my week so far. I am hopeful that my wife's flight goes much better. Oh, so William, as far as the question about they didn't credit my ticket, they did credit my ticket. However, I was flying Southwest, so changes are free. What's not free is that the cost of buying or booking a new plane ticket 2 days in advance of flying. So that's where that extra like $500 comes in. Yes, I do need an assistant to build links off camera. It's the one thing Dan Wilson would be good for. Where is he? For anybody who is just joining in or not, basically we've built the chassis portion of this build with the transmission transfer case. I've got a Holmes Hobbies Puller Pro in there. It's not what I'm like planning on using. I simply put it in there for demonstration. I don't know that I have a brushed motor around. I really only have brushless stuff. So that's what I put in. That's what's in there currently. And right now I'm building what are the worst set of links that I've ever seen. But other than that, the car has been extremely impressive. Very happy with the quality of everything so far. As far as like parts feel and fit and finish and all that. both Fam and Dan don't live far away. They could both probably be here in time to finish these links. Yeah, for those of you, like I was, how it all happened as far as me booking my tickets backwards is that it's cheaper to not fly Southwest for me to go back home. So front lower links. So these are my front lowers. So normally I don't fly Southwest, and so I didn't buy a round trip ticket. Nicole had flown back several days before me, so she did not fly Southwest either. We both flew American home. And then the whole thing, we bought Southwest to return because it was cheaper to fly with them back, supposedly, until I screwed up, with carrying on pets. Because Southwest, it's only like $75 per pet to carry on, rather than like $150 or whatever for whoever else. So, you can all laugh at literally my expense. That's Yes, I do know that there is a tool to help put in link ends. I probably have my hot racing one in there too. But in all honesty, if I run this truck at some point, it will not be with these links. These links will not stay on this car if I like this car and drive it. We're getting there. I know this is the least interesting part of any live feed. That's why at this point, at least, I'm trying to stay up with the comments. Yes, I really wish that Dan was. Ooh, my battery's about dead in this laptop. My bad. I thought I had that plugged in. Hold up. What is we're at 36% on my other device. What is this food talk going on? Hot dog or corn dog? Corn dogs are way better than hot dogs. I don't know what they're talking about either. This is good thing I ate right before this. Yes, it is filler, and I appreciate it because this is when filler is needed. Who's on first? I believe our last two links. And then we can go back to the things that are somewhat fun. Star Wars. I've never seen a single Star Wars movie. I'm an RC nerd like crazy, but have never seen a single Star Wars. I limit my nerd to one genre. I think you'd probably be pretty hard pressed to find how old am I? 34? 33? 30, 33, I think. All right, we need 6 more balls. For any of you SCX-10-2 guys out there that are needing knuckles, you should be able to find them on our site right now. More were added tonight at the end of the day. Links are done. My hands hurt because I was too lazy to go grab the power driver. You're right, orange are not on the site yet. However, this is what the orange knuckles look like on one side. Yay. Okay. Now to install said links. Rear uppers. Let's see how these all go together. M3 by 18s. Okay. So the links on this thing are retained by standard nylocks. I did like that on the new SCX-10-2. Axial did go with a new double shear upper link mount. And a lot of times I do like that you don't have to use a lock nut like this. Granted, you are threading into plastic and all that, but sometimes that's nice. I have not opened the tire package yet, so I don't actually know how the tires feel yet, or what the bead looks like. We'll see how all of that is doing. Let's see. Sorry, I missed a comment. Let's see. About would this one be good for comp crawling? Size for comp crawling. I mean, this could be a good base for class 1, but it's going to be, I guess we have to see. Depends on what your body's going to be and all that. And I don't know yet. I'll have to see what I think when we get closer to it. Just half the time with these things, such a short wheelbase, it seems like you hamper yourself so hard with capability. But oftentimes in C1, those guys are trying to use, hard bodies to get maximum points and yada, yada, yada. The link pockets on this thing are pretty tight. Now, this is the 1/10th, not 1/12th. I mean, you may think 1/12th just because it is such a short wheelbase, but this is what MST is calling their 1/10th version. The 1/8 scale is the one that's going to have the portal style axles, which is the one that I'm most excited for. But so far, this one, regardless of the size, pretty impressed with the build so far. This is, again, yes, it is a small truck. It is built around several of the Tamiya bodies. It's basically like a much better donor to build a truck around with one of those than like a CC01 was. Tamiya CC01 had, the right wheelbase and solid rear axle, but in general was a pretty, people just used it because it was kind of, one of those things you could get fairly easily, but the gear reduction in those things was terrible. The rear suspension was bad. You had to do a lot of work to get them to really perform at all. Not saying that a lot of guys didn't do that, but still. I mean, that tub chassis design and IFS front end, none of it was good. Ugh. All right, time for axles, finally. There's our little chassis and short little tiny terrible links. I'll stop harping on that at some point, but not yet. I need to open bag 6 and 7. 6, 7. All right, time for the axles. Initial thought is this is a super ugly housing. You know, original SCX was no looker either. It's not worse than the original SCX, but not good. Let's see. Bevel gear shaft. So, let's see. What we've got here in front of me is another bevel gear that's attached to the shaft with a screw. Similar to the Vatera, but doesn't look as bad. I'm trying to find the screw size that they say that you use for that. 2 M2 by 6. I see 1 M2 by 6 in this whole bag. That's interesting. I guess it's probably, hopefully it's just in bag 8. Since this is just a front axle. Let's see. Yeah, again, not a fan of the looks of these axles. So far. We'll see when we get into it a little further. You know, again, yeah. First gen SCX10 axles don't look good either, though. So, I mean, but they are short. And there we've got bronze bushings. If I would have just waited like a day to put this together, I probably could have had a bearing kit here from Fast Eddie. I almost feel like I should have, with how bad it feels to use bronze bushings. The last time I used bronze bushings was when trying to get the Wraith axles to hold up to like big power before we had like the better pinion bearing sizes in some of the housings. So what we do have next is some universal shafts that don't look too bad. Here's the bummer. We all knew something else had to be coming. right here, a plastic locker. They did this on the CMX as well. I don't know why they did it then. I don't know why they continue to do it now. Ugh. I mean, it's whatever. It's replaceable. Hopefully it will be upgradable if this car is popular enough. You know, really what it probably comes down to is most guys driving cars that run a 10-inch wheelbase, 9.5-inch wheelbase, are not putting a lot of power to the ground, are not running 10-pound trucks, whatever, but running a plastic locker is just like it's inexcusable. Let's see. This is a really... Let's see. I do not understand 100% how they're trying to show you this assembly method. That goes up here, that goes there. So these axles don't use a tang style. They've got a completely round end, and then they use a pin to go in the end of that axle. Now that is a fairly strong method, so that's a bonus. Now, I think that probably sticks through the housing. Jesus. All these bushings and things just sliding around. Okay. So I'll say that their instructions aren't super clear on the way that these things are assembled. Whatever. There we go. Once it is assembled, it makes for a pretty decent feel. So there's that. Where's the other half of this diff case? Here it is. So, tiny screws. What size screws are these? M2 by 16. Where are those? There they are. Assembling this axle is kind of a trip, just with how some of these things have to, like, you have to put this universal shaft on before you can install the screws into this diff cup. And as I say that, I remember that I need to do the other side as well first. But like the bushings and the head of the CV is kind of in the way. It's very, very odd. Kind of sounded like Rain Man when I said that. So. that through there first. I need that other 10 by 15 bushing. That can go. Other drive pin. Jesus. This thing is very odd to put together. This particular part, sorry. Yeah, I don't think the new deadbolts have an on-off switch. With LiPos nowadays, you shouldn't use an on-off switch anyway. You should always just unplug your battery. Okay. Now you can like kind of really put the bushings in place. All right, there's that now. Again, for those of you who weren't on here earlier, yes, I'm not using grease. I'm just putting this thing together to see how it goes together. Later on, if I like it, I'll get into it and grease it and all that. Four screws hold the center section together, similar to how most of our axles have been. Let's see. Yeah, a plastic locker does seem kind of scary, but you're saying you're tearing them up in a bomber. This is nothing like a bomber. This car is not going to be anything like that as far as what you should put in it for power and the size of the tires. I mean, you could probably put the same drivetrain or the same power in it, and the tiny little tires that this car is made for may never hook up hard enough to tear up this locker. Maybe. At least it would wear out slowly over time, because the plastic does feel good, but it doesn't make me like a plastic locker anymore. Oof. I don't even feel like I tighten this down very much, and this thing does not want to move. I had to back those screws off a quarter turn each from like what you would just snug up. Ugh, the gear. I don't know. We'll see how it feels when it's all spun up, but these gears do not have the best feeling mesh. And those bushings don't help. Good set of bearings. If you order this car, order a Fast Eddie bearings kit at the same time. They're already up on his website. I talked to him about them today. So it does have a really long axle portion, and then the C-hub has the rear lower link mount built into it. And what I'm guessing is the shock mount on top of it. So that doesn't look terrible. These are non-8 degree. They're 0 kingpin inclination style. 3x6 retained. So, all in all, this axle looks a little chunky. It feels quite strong, but it should be for how chunky it is. You know, the new SCX-10-2 axles, especially the Curries, look amazingly thinned down. You know, now when you have a thin axle like that, it's best to have an aluminum axle. You know, even a sleeved AR-44, you'll bend. So there is some people, I haven't looked at upgrade parts for this. Ryan just said that there is a metal locker upgrade for this, which is great news for the guys that want to see those parts that are going to have some longevity. So here's another interesting thing. I had to build these axle shafts with that diff, which means that you can't pull these axle shafts out, which means that you have to build the stub with the center section in there. You have to build it there rather than building it, you know, outside of the car and sliding it in, which is odd. So what you do is you put it over there and you slide the pin through, and then they include these little metal spring retainers to keep it in place. Which is going to be quite fun. So we're going to put the little part of the spring in there. It's a pretty light spring, so honestly that went together pretty easy. Ew. Okay, the axle shaft portion is pretty uninspiring. I didn't miss anything, I'm pretty sure. Nope, I didn't. So this doesn't have your traditional, it's got that inner portion that looks like a CV axle. And then you've got the stub axle, which you're used to seeing as well. Now, generally what you have is you have a barrel that goes into this inside part of that CV axle, but you don't in this one. This thing is just slotted out through the center. So there's nothing that actually holds that metal pin in one place and then allows it to rotate through the field. So instead, what you get is a stub axle that can do this. Now, the inner axle is not moving. That's just the stub axle. So what this is going to do is this is just going to be retained, held into that center locating position by the knuckle bushings and hex pin holding it in the right spot. So they went with a cheap method to do that, really. That's a cost savings thing. I don't think that there's any other excuse for that, but that is all that they did. I wouldn't say by any means that that's a death of the car or something that's going to be a huge deal for most people in most conditions running this car. This spring retaining method is similar. We've seen styles like that from Losi and Viterra, kind of similar, not exactly. Let's see. How'd you lose a bearing retainer? You can shoot customer service an email, and do you need a snap ring or do you need the one-piece bearing retainer? I don't know which part you're talking about for sure. God, I wish these axles spun a little smoother by hand. Okay, knuckle time. Knuckles are very basic looking. Okay. Let's see. They are retained with shoulder bolts that use a Phillips head screwdriver. God damn it. Oh, okay. A snap ring. That's way more. That makes way more sense. Those can be lost. You can shoot us a message and we can help you out with that. Let's see. I actually do have a Phillips head screwdriver in here. Normally I don't. Alright, where are more of those bushings? I'm missing a bag of bushings. Oh, they're all right underneath of the knuckle. Knuckle A. This is A. Okay. Am I doing the right one? Yeah. I hate having to use a Phillips head screwdriver on anything, but all right. Looks like we're. Oh no, this has an axle mounted servo. So this car is not CMS. It is axle mounted. So I don't mind that simplicity wise. Now I know that a lot of guys, especially C1 guys who are interested in that, are going to want a chassis mounted servo, which this does not provide out of the box. So you'll have to be aware of that and make some sort of other arrangements. I don't know how that will work yet. We'll have to see. This is a 4-link car, not a panhard car, so granted, with how small this thing is, you may not have a ton of front axle movement. You may be able to, do the big no-no of chassis-mounted servos and leave it as a 4-link and just find a way to mount the servo up there. I don't know how much room there will be yet with that front-mounted motor hanging out there in the way. So this may be less for the comp crawling guys, the C1 guys, and more for the guys that just like to build a cool looking scaler with one of those Tamiya bodies. Sure, give me a call tomorrow, person who texted me. Let's see. And 3x8. Yes, Phillips head screws and bushings, taking it back to the 80s, like Justin's saying. Tamiya style, Creed says. Now, I will say that it's just those two screws that have been Phillips, or the four kingpin screws that have been Phillips. The rest of this car has some of the best quality hardware that I've used on an RC in a long time. Yeah, sorry from the volume. Hopefully, I've turned it down in case anybody texts me. It's my iPhone and my or my MacBook. When my texts go off, it goes on both, and everybody goes deaf. So here's where our front axle sits now. Let me see if I have a curry. It's a poor example because this is a rear curry and this is a front axle, but you know, you can see a little bit of your difference there. Yes, machines run all night. Nobody has to be here. Those can run at night. Load them again in the morning. The one that you hear it because it's right outside that door, and that's the new one that we put in this summer that took way too long to get running, and that's why the huge delay on the curry axles happened, which was such a bummer. How exactly? Is this for real? Okay, they show it like this. I will not be getting the Sharpie out for these fake bolts. I'll do a size comparison of the full SCX to the CFX later once I have it like together and you can actually get an example. Right now it's just in too many pieces to really do that. So this is the part where it's supposed to bolt a servo in. What I'm slightly torn on is the fact that I have a $200+ 550 ounce servo that I don't think is really needed to turn some 4.2 inch tall tires. So I think for now, I am going to skip putting a servo in this, even though I really should, to get an idea of what this thing's going to be like. That doesn't seem right. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have axial servos around here. Whenever I get it ready to run, I strip the electronics and usually donate them to somebody else. So I've got really nice servos, and that's about all. For this size car, I would probably still put like a 300 ounce servo in it, just because I hate driving an RC car that when I tell it to turn, it doesn't turn. Overpowering a servo is the one thing, or overpowering a car with servo is the one thing that I am a huge advocate of. So the drag link on this car does not use ball ends. It has plastic, basically like the flange pipes from like an axial, original SCX10 or Wraith style knuckle. It has those that go into it. But since this isn't a car, this car doesn't have any kingpin inclination. Everything stays on one plane. So you don't really need rod ends in the same respect that you do on oops, why did I do that? I knew better. This guy. Okay. Okay. You could put a 600 ounce servo on it with a plastic servo horn. Which I guess at this point I'm going to do. Why not? I'm only going to put 2 screws in it. The plastic on the axle actually feels great. Like the stiffness of it and all that. It feels nice and durable. It feels like it has quite a bit of glass in it. It just feels good. Let's see. Do I plan on doing another SCX10 build? I have an SCX10 2 build going. I don't think that I'll probably ever do another standard SCX10 build. The SCX-10-2 is such a better car. What the fuck am I doing? I put the axle in, or the servo on, backwards. I already have the drag link installed. I can clearly see that it needs to go on the other side. Dumb. The noise of the creatures being tortured is just aluminum. Hogging away big blocks of aluminum to make curry axles and a bunch of other things. Other associated parts. Not associated with the car, but curry axle associated. Not associated. Associated. Speaking of servo horns, the new Vanquish servo horns are done, running. I set up the lasering today, and you guys will start seeing those hit the shelves probably Monday. So yeah, with the live builds, I know people pop in and out at different times and all that. So this is the CFX. It's the 1/10 scale as far as MST calls it. MST also has a CFXW coming out, which I'll have a live build on probably early next week or later this week, depending on time. The 1/10 scale is the one that, or the 1/8 scale that they call it, is more similarly sized to an SCX-10. The cool thing with it is that it has portal axles, which I love. It is a massive pain in the ass to get to this servo nut in the way that they show it, but they actually show it the other way. Okay, I'm putting this on here just for looks. There is our fully assembled front CFX axle. It's okay, not bad. Dropped one of the bushings. Don't know why exactly I had one left over. That doesn't make me feel great. Pretty sure I didn't label out. Bag 8 and 9. We are 2 hours and 20 minutes in. Eight, 9. There's our rear axle shaft. One piece from end to end. All right. I would not say that an SCX10 takes half this amount of time to build a kit. I would say that it probably takes pretty close to the same amount of time so far. I don't think that anything's much quicker on one versus the other, or much slower. I mean, if you had, I've done a lot of live kit builds, and they usually take it, pretty similar amount of time. Granted, a lot of time I'm showing things to the camera and all that, but I would not lay favor to one side versus the other at this point. Jesus. I do not love this axle pin, slide it over the locker design. Let's see. Yeah, this is what it shows. If I'm doing this wrong, I'll admit it later. I don't have a hammer handy. Or I'll just say that their instructions are wrong and blame it all on them. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. How are you supposed to? You have to slide it over, slide it past, get the other pin in, and then try and center them both. I still don't love this. Oh, yeah. Told you I'd admit I was doing it wrong. I would put the lip of the needle nose on the table, except that I really don't want to fuck up my table. Like this is, I'm actually doing this in like our conference room, not in a workshop. I do the videos in here because it's a nicer backdrop and you get to listen to the lovely machine noise, and I can't show all the things that are in the office. So this is a better workplace for me in that respect. But I can't screw up my table. Really like this table. It's urban walnut, whatever that means. That is literally the name of the color. pinion is not seated, but I'm so afraid of snapping that screw off because it feels like it's tight. Ugh. I can't bring myself to try and tighten that screw down anymore, but it's still, that pinion still has like a millimeter or better worth of walk back and forth. I think that may just be how it is, and the gears mesh themselves at that point. I wish I had a beer here as well, but I don't keep any alcohol at the office. It would most likely be frowned upon. Right. Slide the plastic locker into that sintered ring gear. Half the bearing sealed and the other half open. I think all of the... So, the transmission has all metal shielded bearings. Then the axles so far are all bronze bushings, or whatever material they want to call them. I'm not really sure. They call them a bearing, obviously, because that's still a typical. And now that I notice that there is a little kind of cross section of how that whole locker assembly went together, but we'll just breeze past my trying to ham fist that together. Are these the right screws? I need alcohol to deal with Dan every day. Bronze-coated pot metal. That sounds about right. Right. Getting blisters, I can feel it. Yes, I know I should grab my power driver, but I didn't before I started, and then if I go look, I won't be able to find it today, and it'll drive me nuts, and it'll just be dead air. Instead, you can all listen to me bitch about my hand hurting and getting blisters. Just about jabbed myself in the hand. Stupid bushings falling out. These use an E-clip at the end of the axle to hold where the outer bushing is going to be, because obviously this is a one-piece axle, so you wouldn't be able to get those inner parts in place if you had a shoulder there. So we put a bushing on the end of each of those. And then, like the front, the rear lockouts also have the lower link mount and the upper shock mount, lower shock mount, whatever. One of my second least favorite part is coming up, which is building the shocks. So since the front axle on this car is made for what do you call it? A servo post, servo mount, whatever, blah blah blah. The holes that are for the servo post actually open up all the way down into the axle housing. So it shows here that you need to install some M3 set screws into there to keep out debris of any kind. So I'm going to do that. Now the upper link mount needs to be put in place. It needs in 3x8s. I think that I'll have it all built tonight. It's 10 o'clock. I don't know. Shocks always take way too long. The knuckles for the SCX-10-2 are scale knuckles, so weren't really interested in putting the knuckle weight part on that. Nope, I haven't put any grease in this whole kit. I'm just building this kit to see if I like it. If I like it down the road, I'm sure I'll tear into it and all that. Really, I just want to see how it goes together, what it's like. You know, it's a good kit and has potential, and want to build something with it. The drive shafts look good. They're beefy. They're kind of Traxxas T-Max-ish. E-Max, whatever. Not quite as beefy as one of those, but pretty decent. Let's see. Front drive shaft. It is insanely windy outside. Sorry, I better check my... Oh, we're still doing okay on battery. One device at least. Okay, set that aside. Back to the chassis for a minute to install what's kind of interesting is rather than just giving you the drive shaft parts so that you can build the drive shaft to whatever length you need, they actually give you another drive shaft universal section and all for the long wheelbase. So this is an extra part, just the whole side. They just give it to you in case you build it with a longer wheelbase. Since I'm using the shorter wheelbase, I'm just using the other ones, and then that'll be left over. But I guess for those of you who have ever put together that style of plastic drive shaft, it's not necessarily easy. Like, a lot of people can have a lot of problems with it. So rather than having that nightmare of customer service, it looks like they just gave you them all assembled, the whole deal. All right, so there's that part all done. Yes, I did put my Yeti Junior back together. I videotaped all of it. Going to try and get it all edited together. It's just turning into a really long edit, so crazy amount of noise out there. There's a train going by in the wind. So right in the instructions, they do note on this car that you need to install your drive shafts in phase. So that's they are obviously tech savvy people. Okay, M3 by 18s. M3 by 18s and M3 by... Hold on, sorry. There's a crazy noise outside. Interesting. All right. Axle has a decent amount of freedom in the back, even without, without the shocks on at least. Pinion angle change is okay. Keeps it pretty flat. Okay. Trying not to fade too fast on this. I do not know if I'm going to make it all the way through this thing tonight. I'd at least like to get the axles all put on. Maybe the rolling stock mounted, just to get a good idea of what this little thing will look like. Last little bit of getting the links mounted to the car, or the axles mounted to the links or chassis or whatever it is. I have not opened the shock bag yet. It's in front of me there. I can't really see the details on it yet until I open some of those parts. I'll at least open those up and see what it looks like. Yes. What I didn't do first, which I don't know if I'll be able to do now, is attach the damn drive shaft with the links installed. Woohoo, you can. I got lucky. Do you like the links? Well played. For those of you that missed it, it says the worst links I've ever seen. My fingers hurt. Okay, next is building the shocks. I really do not feel like building shocks tonight. Instead, I'm going to show you guys what the wheels, tires, I'll show you what everything looks like at least. So, the tires. Tread on them is very all-terrain-ish, maybe even scale mud terrain, somewhere in between. They have a pretty good feel. To give you an idea of this tire, here is my 1.9 Pitbull Rock Beast XL. You know, like in comparison, it's kind of comical. Like this is a massive 1.9, and this is an absolutely tiny 1.9. But that's that should give you an idea of what these things are like. The foams are fittingly small as well. It says that these are a 90 millimeter tire, 30 by 90 by 1.9. So 90 millimeters is pretty short. Let's see. These are, is that right? 3.5 4-inch tall tire. Yep. These are a 3.5 4-inch tall tire. Not even a 4.19. The wheels are an old schooly steel wheel type look with a really thin hex on the back. Again, this is a pretty low power truck, I would say. Granted, I mean, it's got a metal drivetrain as far as gears and shafts and all that go. Just no, just not the locker. I mean, this is a comically small tire for me, not for a lot of guys, but guys who want tiny tires, there you go. I think the smallest tires I've ever ran on a 10th scale car have been like the old high lift tires. Those super tiny, super hard Tamiya tires. And I don't think that they were this small. The rubber doesn't feel bad though. So we're almost I'm not going to bother with venting or anything like that. I'm just putting this together. It does include plastic wheel hexes, so there's that. Yeah, this part could put somebody to sleep. I will not be singing though. Sorry. I'm about to a stopping point. I'm going to show the shock setup. That is going to be a good stopping point for me for the evening, I think. I'd say it's kind of a cute little truck. It honestly reminds me of a better version of like a low-C MRC, more than an SCX10. You know, the low-C MRCs made great little 1.9 scalers like this. This has a better drivetrain than a low-C MRC has. It uses a better sized motor. It's got steel chassis rails. If anything, that is what I would slate this little thing against. So it looks like I needed to install some sort of, like, it needs a spacer to push my servo forward, because as my servo comes up under full compression, it actually hits the end of the spur gear top shaft. So I actually can't get full front compression. The rear comes all the way up until it hits the cross member at this point. Where it sits once it has the shocks is a different story. I don't know exactly, but this is a cool little truck. For what it is, for what it's meant to be used with, that size body. I would say that if you're looking for a truck to use with that size body, this would be a pretty good fit. It's got some cool features. The motor's forward. It's way high. I mean, it's very high, but call that how however you want. So if you want to there's my SCX10 too, and there's this thing. Like, that's gives you an idea of the size difference between these cars. It's definitely the little buddy version of it. But it's cute nonetheless. That was fun. I've had all the fun I can have for the night, though, guys. I'm done. So I'm gonna clean up at this point. I'll build the shocks and stuff later. I'll get a picture of that for you guys. Just so you know, they're all plastic-bodied shocks. Small diameter, short body. Probably, what is this? Does it tell me a length? It doesn't. I would say that these are probably more like a, I don't know, 60. They're more like a 70 millimeter shock than a 90 millimeter SCX10 shock, but I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point. So that's all I got. Thanks, guys. I'm tired. I'm gonna go home, clean up a little bit first, and then I'm gonna get out of here. So with that, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.